Hey, what's going on, guys? I just heard the news on this MMA website that um they is considering re-signing Brock Lesnar for another fight with Jon Jones, who just moved up to weight division. A couple of weeks ago, it was announced that Jon Jones will be fighting at heavyweight now in the UFC, and then a couple of days after that, it was announced on wrestling websites that Brock Lesnar um, left the WWE and all his merchandise was pulled from their website. His contract expired. And I just read this article that basically said that if Jon Jones wants to fight Brock Lesnar in a big money fight, Dana White is down to put it together. Now, this is exactly what the UFC needs right now because they haven't really had big money fights lately. Yeah, you had Stipe versus Cormier, three, but as big a name as Stipe and Cormier are in the MMA community, they're not that really that big in the mainstream culture the way that Johnny Bones Jones and Brock Lesnar are, especially with Brock coming off that WWE run and stuff. But I think besides the promotion and how crazy it would be, I think it'd be even more crazy because Jon Jones could whoop that ass. Brock Lesnar is not good with his striking. He's mainly a wrestler. I mean, a real amateur wrestler, a great amateur wrestler. But when it comes to his striking, he don't really got it like that. We saw that in the fight against Cain Velasquez and in the fight against Alistair Overeem. Brock's main strategy has always been to take his opponent down with his wrestling. Since his first ever fight with Minsu Kim way back in K1, always to use his wrestling. Never Brock was never really a striker like that. But the only reason why I think this fight won't happen is because of USADA and the testing. Like, we know Jon Jones was popped for steroids, and we know Brock was popped for steroids last time he competed at UFC 200 way back in 2016. And Jones was popped for steroids um, when he was supposed to fight Cormier again. So if Brock could work on his striking and really focus on doing what he got to do to become competitive again, because remember, he left the UFC in 2011 and he went to work for the WWE for many years after that, and he did great things in the WWE. But the WWE is not competitive, guys. It's fake, you know. So as we saw with CM Punk, all the stuff you do in the WWE really don't matter when it comes to nothing cutting time, and you got to do it in a real fight like in the UFC. So when you step into that octagon, it's a whole nother ball game. Jon Jones, yeah, he does some extracurricular activities and shit with strippers and all that shit, but in the end of it, he's the goat of MMA. He's like it's him and George St. Pierre, like neck and neck. You know what I mean? But never was there ever since Brock Lesnar a dominant heavyweight in the division. You know what I mean? Brock Lesnar was able to set the crowd on fire for the heavyweight division in MMA for the first time ever. Yo, I remember way back in 2008. I wasn't even really I mean, I kind of got into MMA a little bit at that point, like the whole Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz craze. But in 2008, I'm going to a Broadway play in the Heights with my girl, and I see a big ass billboard for UFC 91, the one where Randy Couture fought Brock for the title. And I hadn't seen or heard from Brock Lesnar since he left the WWE in 2004. And I'm like, oh shit, Brock Lesnar gonna be in the UFC now. So it is what it is. I've always been a fan of Brock since he first came to WWE in 2002. But if he goes back to the UFC, that's what's up, man. He always had exciting fights. His two with Frank Mir were really good. The ones he had with Overeem and Kane were really good. You know, him and Frank Mir kind of linked at the hip when they come to UFC, just like him and Undertaker is in wrestling. You know what I mean? Like Brock has that narrative. And another fight I think that they could really have on the undercard if they do this fight for the title is the BMF title, the Jorge Masvidal versus Nick Diaz. I mean, Nate Diaz, rather. Because that fight was shitty, man. Yo, stoppage? Come on. Like, I mean, your boy Masvidal, he talks a good game, but I still say Nate could fuck him up. I mean, another good one I love to see is Adesanya versus Romero 2. Because that boy Adesanya be running, boy. He be running. What did Romero say? He was like, "You pay for paper view. We finally pay for paper view. Then I'm going to see you running. America, not forget. Not forget, America. Michael Bisping, I love you." Yo, Elvis Romero, yo, that's my dude, man. Ever since he knocked out Luke Rockwell, that's my dude, man. Soldier of God. For real, that's my dude. Yeah, and anyway, in WWE news that I just heard, besides Brock Lesnar being released now, what if Brock Lesnar do go back to the UFC? What does this mean for WWE? I mean, Roman Reigns is being managed by Paul Heyman now. So he's like the new Brock. You know what I mean? Fuck him up and leave, right? Or destroy him and leave or some shit like that. Yeah. So he's a Paul Heyman guy now, right? My client, Roman Reigns, is the second one behind the streak. He's the 2 in 22 and 2. That's gonna be Heyman's new line, right? And he's already the Universal Champion, yo. Like they'd be like, "Yo, fuck the Fiend," right? He lost to Goldberg, and he lost to freaking Roman Reigns, the two masters of the spears, right? But yeah, but some people are saying, "Oh, this is all bullshit." Brock just putting the feelers out. He's not going to sign with the UFC. He's going to end up going back to WWE and then having a match with fucking Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, which I don't want to see. Come on, man. That was the main event for the last two WrestleMania. I mean, WrestleMania 34 and WrestleMania 31. They got to come up with different main events. This is why the WWE stay losing fans. You know what I mean? like right now, AEW is doing better than the WWE. This talks about moving NXT brand that comes the show that come on Wednesday night to um to the USA Network. I'm like, when they're out of the USA Network onto the WWE Network, and I'm like, that's because y'all couldn't get the ratings. Um y'all couldn't beat fucking Tony Khan. Tony Khan putting out Orange Cassidy, putting out Chris Jericho. He be hitting them hard with the main events on the specials. With a lot of the Chris Jericho main events that people want to see. You know what I'm saying? And introducing you to newer stars, newer people, that we never seen before, like Luchasaurus and those cats. You know what I'm saying? WWE need to step their game up. You ain't got Brock Lesnar no more. You ain't got Ronda. You ain't got no can't see me John Cena. So WWE gonna suffer hard, man. They gonna start building new stars. And but see, maybe he could do a one fight deal where he fights for UFC for that one big fight with Jon Jones, and then he could go back to WWE and fight with fucking this guy with Roman Reigns as a babyface, or Matt Riddle, or him and Goldberg in a handicap against Matt Riddle. Because I heard Matt Riddle talking shit too, talking about he want to be the one to retire Brock in wrestling, not in MMA, in wrestling. You know what I mean? So the future's up in the air for Brock. I don't see him going to AEW. Like that was another thing people were talking about. Oh, he gonna go to AEW and shit. And I'm like, who's in AEW for him to fight? Like AEW ain't got nobody. John Moxley, he don't need to fight John Moxley. We already seen him fight John Moxley at WrestleMania 32. John Moxley is trash, yo. Go either Goldberg or Brock Lesnar come into AEW. He'll make everybody in AEW look like garbage. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, all of them. He'll make them all look like garbage because they're all indie wrestlers, indie outlaw mud show fucking wrestlers. They're not. They're not the caliber of people that Brock is used to facing. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. Did he ever wrestle Shawn Michaels? Nah, he didn't. Um, Shawn Michaels. I think he wrestled one time. Hulk Hogan. He completely demolished Hulk Hogan in 2002 on SmackDown. I still remember that. You know what I mean? And I just got through finished reading Brock Lesnar's book, and in Brock's book he said, "I don't face nobody that's a jabroni. I don't face nobody that's a loser." In WWE, the only big name match they got from him is The Rock. In UFC, the only big name match they got from him is Jon Jones. Cause he's not gonna fight Stipe. Stipe not big enough a name. Francis Ngannou, which from reading his book, I found out that um he was supposed to fight Francis Ngannou. I mean, yeah, he was supposed to fight Francis Ngannou from back in the day. But you put Brock with somebody like Francis Ngannou, and he'll be destroyed. Francis Ngannou strikes are no joke. if he thought if he thought Alistair Overeem was something, Francis Ngannou ain't no joke. And in AEW, uh, there's nobody. You know what I'm saying? He already fought Jericho. He already fought Ambrose. You know what I mean? Moxley. The new guys, he got no interested in them. He's not sleaze. Fucking people are talking about the guy that Taz manages. Was Nick Cage. He sucks, man. He's just another muscle man. Or MJF's bodyguard, uh, Warlord or whatever, Wardlow or some shit. Crackhead Warlord, like the Warlord we had back in the day. He was the real Warlord. Shit, that match with him and British Bulldog from WrestleMania 7 was the shit. You know what I mean? Power and glory. But this Warlord, whatever, it's not. They're not up to Brock's level. Even Jericho looks small time messing around with them. Okay, and then you move over to the next MMA organization, Bellator. They suck, man. They are horrible. They ain't got nobody. All they got is a played out Fedor Emelianenko, and he ain't even got the streak no more. So what good is he worth? So whether you're talking about fighting or wrestling, no other. UFC only got one fight left. WWE only got one match to make, and that's about it. And Brock should be done. If in UFC, he's gonna get his ass kicked. Jon Jones is younger, he's faster, he's a better striker. This in the WWE, um, his best bet is to stay with, with the WWE for real, because like Brock ain't ready for the steam, man. Brock ain't ready at all, man. Yo, WWE is one thing, the Octagon is another thing, boy. You're not you're not prepared for that. I stay watching that Mike Jackson CM Punk fight from from UFC 252. I mean, yeah, UFC 205. That shit was embarrassing, man. Yo, it let it let everybody know, even Batista, that you in pro wrestling, you better stay your ass in pro wrestling if you don't want to get beat up. And I was thinking too, you know what AEW might try to do? AEW might try to put your boy Brock against Jack Swagger. Talking about they both got MMA careers. See, but who this might fuck up if he goes to the UFC and he don't come back to WWE. Who this might fuck up is Bobby Lashley. They're doing this whole thing with him and MVP and Shelton. And the whole reason why Bobby Lashley in 2017 was doing real good at Impact. At that time, Impact wasn't as bad as it is now. Now they got the belt on Tessa Blanchard and shit. And over there, old Ken Shamrock on the roster. But it's not doing as bad, at back then. And he was doing good, but he chose to come back to WWE because he wanted to face Brock. You know what I mean? Tom Brock was gone from WWE. A lot of people compared him to Brock, so you want to face Brock. So you got one good fight with Brock in WWE, and you got another good fight with Brock in UFC. But I hope for the UFC fight. Anyway, peace, guys. Like my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and give me your thoughts on Brock. Jon Jones, a possibility at UFC whenever. All right, peace.